Mr. and Mrs. Smith has the perfect casting choice for Season 2 after Season 1 introduced an interesting character in a cameo role. The reluctant couple spy dramedy on Amazon Prime Video has been one of the early hits of 2024, in part because of its smart casting, creative approach to the story, and expansion of ideas from the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith film from 2005. The show has a star-studded cast that also featured plenty of interesting short-time parts. The cast of Mr. and Mrs. Smith includes Donald Glover, John Smith, and Maya Erskine, Jane Smith, as covert operators who are forced to not only work together but also work under false identities as a married couple. The premise is quite different from the 2005 film, both in story and in aesthetic. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is one of Amazon Prime Video's most viewed shows, all but assuring a second season will be given a green light. Assuming that's the case, the show could continue its trend with the perfect cameo. Peter Erskine could play Jane's dad in Mr. and Mrs. Smith Season 2. Donald Glover's real-life mom played John's mother in Season 1. Throughout Mr. and Mrs. Smith Season 1, it is revealed that John Smith maintains constant contact with his mother, something that is forbidden to become a John or Jane Smith. When she is finally introduced, Donald Glover's real-life mother, Beverly Glover, was in Mr. and Mrs. Smith and was the one playing the role of John's mother, Denise. This opens up the door for Maya Erskine's father, Peter Erskine, who is a famous jazz drummer, to play the role of Jane's father in Mr. and Mrs. Smith Season 2. Peter Erskine has been a professional drummer and musician for more than 50 years, and has played with Weather Report, Steps Ahead, Steely Dan, and Mary Chapin Carpenter, among many others. He has been named Best Jazz Drummer of the Year 10 times by Modern Drummer magazine. Peter does not have any acting credits to his name, but is close to Hollywood, having played on soundtracks for Memoirs of a Geisha, Austin Powers, The Secret Life of Pets, and the Oscar-winning La La Land. Why Jane's dad needs to appear in Mr. and Mrs. Smith Season 2. Jane's father is a lingering question. Maya Erskine as Jane Smith shooting from a shotgun in Mr. and Mrs. Smith show. Similar to the relationship between John Smith and his mother in Season 1, there are lots of references to Jane's father and their relationship throughout the first season of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Introducing Peter Erskine as Jane's father would be a logical way of developing Jane's character further, and would probably allow for a fun cameo moment of the two of them reuniting. Considering the relationship that John and Jane developed in Season 1, John meeting Jane's father would be an intriguing plot point. There is a concern about how John and Jane can continue to be in touch with their parents even though that contact is strictly forbidden by the John and Jane Smith Code of Conduct. The introduction of John's mother in Season 1 almost led to both John and Denise's death, after all. However, now that John has had a parent introduced in the ending of Mr. and Mrs. Smith Season 1, it only makes sense that Jane would have her turn in Season 2.